You wrote your first book, Hence the Future, in your first year at uni, and it just blew up and everybody knew about you in school. What led to writing the book?
So it's a long story. It started as an article. I wrote an article. It was after something tragic happened. Vespas. She died from Unza because of the riot that was going on. And then people were saying she died and she was just about to leave her future because she was in final year. And then my question became, what is the future? Is it a standard destination where we get to once you finish school and you become successful? Or is it just the journey? Because we never know when we're called home. I started encouraging myself to say, let me do everything I want to do now. So that's where it came from.
The other book which I must talk about is Intentional Healing. Tell me about the book.
It's like a continuation.
Yeah.
In university, I started learning that it's not only financial challenges that exist. And I was kind of naive because one thing is that I just put a lot of trust in people, and so I had friends that would betray you, things happen, and I'm like, wow, being a mentor and everything, being someone who thought I should always be perfect, it also affected me as well. So it was like I never had an outlet and I had to do these things by myself. That's how I started healing, and that's how come I wrote Intentional Healing.
When it comes to publishing a book,
Yeah.
What challenges did you face and what's your advice to upcoming authors?
There are a lot of challenges in the publishing space, majorly because in Zambia, we don't have a full publisher. I don't know, maybe now. We only have people that would print, edit, typeset, and then they give you the book to sell yourself. That's not a publisher, because a publisher really incubates your book. They read your book to sell on your behalf, to do everything on your behalf, then you just collect money. But we don't have such a system in Zambia.
Quick one, before we go any further, please remember to like and to subscribe and to share. And I promise to bring you the best and most valuable content. Hi, Chimba.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
It's been a while. It's been years.
Yes. I was thinking a wow is an understatement.
Yeah. Yeah. So just to go back, the first time I came across you is the time we were at the Copperbelt University. So just hearing stories of, there's this girl who has written a book. She's very young. She's written a book and she's only in her first year.
Yeah.
And that was your book, Hence the Future. I was really inspired by that.
Yeah.
So of course, after that, I started seeing more of your work. You're motivating people. A lot of young people were looking up to you and still look up to you even till today.
Thank you.
And your story is really inspiring. Looking at where you came from, what you're doing, and what you're still doing. It's really inspiring. And so I'm really excited to have you here. I know we'll talk about how we met and how everything went down and how I convinced you to make your first YouTube video.
Of course.
So just take me back. I like going back to people's story, like where they started from, because where you started from, how you grew up has influenced the person that you are today.
Absolutely.
And the things that you've gone through. So what was it like growing up? How was Chishimba like? What were you interested in?
Well, when I was growing up, really, I didn't think I would be who I am today. I think when you're growing up, you have that, a world of dreams and ideas and possibilities, and this wasn't one of it. When I was growing up, I was actually a nerd, like big time nerd. I liked books, I liked reading, I liked writing, I liked doing nerdy stuff. And the other thing I would do was draw. I was a very good artist. Like when you visit my house, you spend more than an hour at my place. You'd have your face drawn.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I'd pick up a pen and paper or a pencil, whatever I could find, and then start, drawing our visitors. And then I'd even put some chat box and say something funny like that.
Yeah.
So that was me growing up. I grew up in Mufulira, born and bred, from a family of 3 girls. I'm the last born.
Oh, you're the last one?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically, I used to do a lot of, art and a lot of, nerdy stuff, really. That was my life.
And then there was a tragic story where your dad passed away at sick and your mother had to take up the role of taking care of you, being the mother and the father. How did that impact you? Has it still impacted you till today?
Well, I think I was a bit very young. I was too young to process exactly what happened during that time. But one thing I noticed was that life changed. Obviously, when a father figure disappears from the picture, And the unfortunate part is that I was too young to like wrap my head around everything that was happening. All I could know, and whatever people used to say were around me, they just said life would change, and it basically changed because I had to move from seeing my mom as this, typical, mundane mom.
Yeah.
And then she turned into a superhero, like someone who's able to take on both roles. And our family became very small. It was just me and my sisters and my mom, and so life changed, obviously, especially when it comes to finances. Yeah, so you find yourself struggling here and there with things that never used to be a problem initially. And then you're worried about your future and you just notice that something has changed, but you're too young to comprehend. So that really changed me. But in an opposite sense, it made me see my mom in the positive light. Say, she is someone who's doing all this. And that gave me the idea to say a woman can also become a superhero. I use superhero because I don't know which other way to describe my mom and her heroics when it comes to raising us up. And so that gave me an idea that, women can be, great pillars of society. And that's what made me different from my peers, because I was able to identify, with the role of, someone great. So I started becoming very ambitious in those moments, and I started looking at life as limitless. So in as much as it had a negative connotation, it also impacted my life in a very positive manner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So would you say your mother is your role model?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's easy to admire someone from a distance, but you never know their day-to-day lives.
Yeah.
But this is a woman who, I'll give you an example. My mom is not the kind of mom who would sit you down and say, stop doing this, She's someone who lived that story. She wouldn't tell you to get back home at 18. She was always home at 18. So that was just something you knew you had to do. So from her life, I was able to model, a perfect picture of the kind of woman I wanted to be. So she, and this is the thing, that great people who are not popular, she may not be, popular, but she is my hero in the sense that I saw her, transform from this, house mom to someone who started now fending for our kids and taking care of them. And being female kids was also an added pressure. Yeah, but we thank God for her. She's strong and very powerful.
Yeah. Well, that's really inspiring. She is definitely a superhero.
Absolutely.
Now, what would you say was like a moment that changed your perspective on life? What would that moment be?
Wow. I think it's hard to pinpoint which one exactly, but I feel like there were a lot of events that led to me having a changed perspective. So I think the first one is when my father died, because it changed. I didn't even realize it. That's the bad part. You're too young to process, but then you see life change. And that was a time where we experienced a lot of financial challenges, and I saw how money could have such importance in life. And so I think from there, that's where I started drawing so much energy. And I saw a lot of stigma around women as well. There was someone who walked up to me and told me, as a woman, you shouldn't be too successful because you won't get married. That used to happen. You're doing great, but then she's just a woman and all those things. So I feel like there were just little bits of things that happened along the journey that made me who I am. So I don't think I can pinpoint a time, but I think one thing that truly changed my life was the death of my father. And from there I was able to pick myself up and become who I am today. So I think it could be the most pivotal.
No, that's a really inspiring story, because usually most times when one parent dies, especially the father figure or the breadwinner who used to provide for the family, even when you look at research, most likely the children will just go astray and be put up on drugs or start doing other bad things just in order to survive. And I think your mother has really played the role of being a superhero, being the father and the mother at the same time. So your mother is really inspiring. I think I can also relate, because I also lost my father. Well, I wasn't very young, but it also changed most things in life. I was a kid who grew up thinking my father would never die. I would never lose my parents. That's the mentality I had. But then your father dies, and then a lot of things change. Job is taken away. Your mother is just a housewife, and now she has to be all these things herself.
Yeah.
And so it also changed the way I looked at life as well. And yeah, it showed me the bad side of life, of hunger. I think that's also like motivated me as well to say, well, you can't just sit there and wait. Your father is not here anymore. You have to do something with your life, something meaningful. Yeah, so I really relate to that story. And yeah, mothers are really superheroes.
Wow, I had no idea.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But unfortunately, of course, my mother also passed after 5 years after my father.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but no, it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, but I think the most important thing is how do you pick up from that point when your father or mother are not there, because they're not there anymore.
Yeah.
What do you do after that? I think that's the most important question. Each person, even if you're an orphan or whatever that you're going through, that's the most important question you have to ask yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for that.
Wow. Yeah. That was an emotional moment. Yeah. I'm glad you're fine. I'm glad you're doing fine in your own space.
Yeah.
You know, and it's inspiring.
Yeah. So you wrote your first book, Hence the Future, in your first year at uni.
Yeah.
And you're pretty young, and it just blew up, and everybody knew about you in school.
Yeah.
What led to writing the book?
So it's a long story, but funny story. Okay. Yeah. So like I said, when I was growing up, I was a nerd. I was, good at school, and when I finished my grade 12, I started waiting to go to uni, and when I went to uni, it was very different from what I thought or my perspective. And then it was during a time where I started now questioning, because I don't know, I stumbled upon this article and I realized that Bill Gates was not educated. So I was like, hey, what lie have they told us? Mark Zuckerberg dropped out of school. Hey, this guy, you know. And I think I started researching more into it because I grew up as someone who thought, because of what I went through, school would be the equalizer. So I was so much into school. I would study. I even had, this is embarrassing, but I had, like when you have a guava tree and you like put a sack, then you sit in the guava tree and then study. Did you ever do that?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
like make a study space.
Oh, on top of the trees. Oh, yeah, I remember. Oh, really? You did it yourself?
Yeah. And then I had like this space at the backyard where I had like installed, a place where I would study from. I was a nerd big time because I was thinking if only I could make it in school, I would become this person, But then as, after I was during that, waiting period, I started realizing to say, oh, these guys did not even get educated. So what's this about? And I think the other thing is like people feel when you are smart, you get 6 points, you become a doctor. So I was in that space. I wanted to be a doctor and I was studying so hard for it. So I was waiting to come to CBU. And then during that time, I started, the same personal development that led me to now discovering that these guys were not even, these guys dropped out of university. So I think it was at that point where I started questioning, what I believed. And when I went to university, I discovered, some loopholes, and it was contrary to what I thought uni was about. And so I found myself in an identity crisis. Yeah, because where I was coming from, I thought I had it figured out. But then when I bumped into that same article, I started questioning everything I believed in. And so I found myself pulling away a little bit from school and having this, confusion as to if I really, really wanted to be a doctor, because I was just trying to fit into societal expectations. And so I was there in university, and this idea of being a doctor, unfortunately, did not motivate me enough, because studying in school to pass, studying geography and the likes, ADMA and everything, it's not the same thing as being in tertiary education, because when you are in tertiary education, it's like it's now creating your future. Like you are at that space where now this is where I go. So I started having cold feet, into becoming, a doctor, and that affected the way I studied and the way that I would do everything. And so I found myself pulling away from school, and that affected my performance as well, because here I was, and when I would write, because I never used to write as much.
Oh, really?
I started writing and public speaking, and it made so much sense to me. So when I would write, it made a lot of sense. But then when I'm not writing, I'm studying. I would like be lost. I remember there was a time I was studying on the cell in biology, and I spent 6 hours and I only covered one page.
Wow.
That's how bad it got. I wanted to study, I wanted to be this person, but then I realized, am I really on the right path?
Yeah.
And so that's how I started writing. The more I write, because it's like I started writing about my experiences, and the more I wrote, the more it made sense to me. And at the end of the day, I wrote a book. Because I was also doing some Facebook articles, and so I figured, hey, what if I turn this into a book? It was just a way of escape for me from the pressure that I was experiencing. And unfortunately, I don't know if it's fortunately, but at that time, it was unfortunately, it made so much sense to me. And I started having, the same battle. And that's how come I wrote a book. So it came from a struggle, but the way people celebrated the book was out of the world. Because it came at a time when CB was closed. So it's like they wanted to make it, a thing that students here also have sense to do this. So they were like, a 20-year-old from CBU has written a book, and then they're saying CBU is not a good institution. And so that's what helped it blow up. And my phone was almost freezing at the time. Exactly, because this one shares. And I was like not out there because I never grew up. I never even recited a memory verse in church. Never have I. When people see you speaking and they think you've been doing this for a long time. But I was that person, and then people started inviting me for speaking engagements and things like that. So it was actually a scary moment for me.
Like, how do I handle this?
Yeah, this pressure, and I just want to be this kid in school. But it was a struggle for me. Do I really continue on this educational path, or should I continue writing? So when people look at that, and this is the same thing with stories of success. When you're looking at, someone doing something successful, you don't really know the backstory. So for that story, it was me having so many struggles, identity crisis, and that just led me into writing. And when I wrote something, people were so excited about it. And I put it out there, and I think... That's how come I read a book at 20. I wouldn't want to claim it was just something that I planned all along. It was just something that happened, and I was like, hey, let me write a book.
So you started writing while you were in school?
Yeah, I wrote it in 3 weeks, actually.
For real?
Yeah.
Wow. 3 weeks?
Yeah.
A book?
Yeah. It started as an article. I wrote an article. It was after something tragic happened, Vespa's.
Oh, yeah.
She died from Unza, I think because of a riot that was going on. And then people were saying she died and she was just about to leave her future. And in my mind I was thinking, because she was in final year, and people were saying she was just about to leave her future and she dies. And people were like, regretful of that, And then my question became then that, what is the future? Is it a standard destination where we get to once you finish school and you become successful? Or is it just the journey? Because we never know when we're called home. That's the truth of life. So I started encouraging myself to say, let me do everything I want to do now. So that's where it came from. It came from that story. I wrote an article about it on Facebook saying the future is not a standard destination. It's something you create every day. You may be in your future and you don't really know. And that was really what the book was about. So it was an article, people liked it. I turned it into a book.
And it blew up and everybody liked it.
Yeah, and behind that, I was having an identity crisis.
People didn't know that.
No.
Yeah, I think that's the moment where I even met you. And I was just like, oh, can I do this video thing?
Yeah.
Let me find someone who was at least doing something.
Yeah. And
that's the time that I approached you to make that video.
Yeah.
The sound was really bad.
Like those,
Yeah.
The wind was
the wind was blowing. There was actually even lightning. When you look at the video, the lightning in the background.
Yeah. The YouTube channel still lives.
Yeah, still lives. I've seen that you updated. When I was doing research on you, I saw that still living. Yeah. Yeah, that was a crazy moment. I was also, during that time, I was also going through the same experience.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we didn't even talk about it. Because I saw you as this perfect person, like you haven't figured it out. And I didn't get that part. Yeah.
Of the crisis. And I heard someone say that when you're at the top, that's where, many people get depressed. When you feel like you are doing what you're supposed to do, but then you realize that it's lonely up there.
Yeah.
You know, it's confusing up there because, like I said, people are celebrating you. They want you to be their mentors. They want you to be this person, but you're also just trying to figure things out. You know, and you wouldn't. I know you wouldn't even imagine. Like, is this person having an identity crisis? I don't know.
No, I wouldn't. I never thought of that. I thought you had everything was perfect for you. School was going fine for you. You had this thing running.
Yeah.
So, and that's the thing, you know, you can't even have chance to express yourself to other people.
Yeah.
When everybody's looking up to you, it's hard to express yourself and the depression that you're going through, the crisis that you're going through.
Yeah.
So, I mean, life.
Yeah, that's life. And, you know, it's like people think you are... I remember one of my friends had a relationship challenge. Then she came up to me and she told me about it. So whenever she has a relationship challenge, basically, she's on me, she's telling me, oh, this happened. I'm like, oh, do this. So there was this time I was confused, you know, because the dating thing was not... I used to be a coach, but back in the day, I was like, coaches don't play. It's like you have this wisdom to help people, but you've never had experience yourself. So when it is your turn, and this is what people don't understand in mentorship, and this is what I learned also, you know, because at the end of the day, you also need an outlet. Every person needs, every daddy has a daddy. There's someone who says that. You know, so you get to realize that you also need an outlet, you know, people to talk to. And I remember I went to my friend and I told her, hey, there's this thing that has happened. What do I do? And then she's like, no, that's not how it works. I get advice from you.
Oh, yeah.
I asked another friend and he was like, hey, I would just do what you told me to do. And, you know, so at the end of the day, I started feeling, are people really going to understand what I'm going through? You know, not until I met some people who are also mentors. And I also just, you know, became, you know, more expressive. You know, to the right people, of course. So you have to find the right people to express yourself to. I think that's what worked.
Really?
Yeah, but that time, I was, if things were happening around me, but I was not really sure who I was in that moment. Yeah.
And it was kind of hard to like express yourself or tell people to be vulnerable to, right?
Yeah.
Because everybody's now looking up to you and think this person who knows everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the result of this started coming from my academics. Because to give a background, I was this kid, Muflira Olympiads, female, male, I was the highest, I made records back home. And so when I started struggling, it affected my academic performance, and people still did not process that. So some were saying, probably you went to uni and you met a guy or something. But that's just the power of not knowing who you are or what you are doing. It kind of reflects in the things that you're doing. And you begin to underperform. So I was at that stage where those things were happening for me. My academics were not good. And being someone who believed so much in school, that affected me.
You really struggled in school with grades?
Yes.
Wow. You see, this is the first time I'm hearing about this.
Of course.
Because we're all looking from the outside. We don't know what's really going on with somebody. Now, of course, you've written other books, but I think the other book which I must talk about is Intentional Healing.
Yeah.
Tell me about the book.
Yeah, and it's like a continuation. Because that came after everything, you know. So the only way I knew to express myself was through books. I had not become a very seasoned speaker by then. So after going through all that, you know, so what happened was the same, you know, academic struggles I was experiencing. And then it was during that time, you know, that I met someone. For the first time, I felt like, hey, I could give someone a chance. And then, unfortunately, it couldn't work out because the distance was there and so many other issues. And then I was upset. I was like, I thought the first time I'd be in a relationship, it was going to work.
Perfect.
Yeah. So I was in that space, you know, where I was. You know, academically, things are not happening because I'm not even sure who I am. You know, and I think that's also maybe part of the reason why that relationship couldn't also work out, because I wasn't sure and I wasn't even sure what I was doing, you know. So it's obviously hard for you to navigate around that. So in university, I started learning that it's not only financial challenges that exist. Because before that, I only knew money. I was like, money.
Because that was the priority then.
And I was kind of naive because one thing is that I just put a lot of trust in people, you know, and so I had friends that would betray you, things happen, and I'm like, wow. So it was like that child is now like, getting out of me, saying, okay, this is now maturity. Welcome to the real world. So I experienced all those things at the same time. And that's when I wrote, that book, Intentional Healing, because I came to realize that, and it happens differently for different people, but for me, being a mentor and everything, being someone who thought I should always be perfect, it also affected me as well. So it was like I never had an outlet and I had to do these things by myself. That's how I started, healing. And that's how come I wrote Intentional Healing, to tell people. One thing I got to understand is that, because people would say time is the healer. But I looked at my life and I was like, this healing is not happening.
It's not happening.
Yeah, so intentional healing is basically, saying, if you say time is the healer, then time also makes you rich. You can also say time can make you rich.
Oh, yeah. Just have to wait.
Yeah. So, but at the end of the day, what determines healing and being rich is what you do in the time that you're given. So time is just a platform that you use to heal. It's not itself that will heal you. If you're not taking intentional steps in order to heal, you're not going to heal. Yeah. So that's basically what the book is. It's a long book because it contains, questions like, is life fair? All those things, because I got to learn that. And I feel like for some people, or maybe for all people, it should be like this. But in my case, I appreciate the things I've been through, because it has made me a better mentor, a better person to, teach others about certain things, because I feel if I never experienced failure, because I was this smart kid, and it was even hard for me to teach my sisters and people, because I felt like people pretended to be dumb.
Really? Like, this is so easy. Why can you just... Yeah, I think I was also like, that at some point.
This math person, and I was like, you're just doing long division. Just put this line down here. But I realized, then to say it takes so much to be smart. Some things have to be in place for you, to be smart and to be in this area. So even emotionally, it can affect your performance in so many things. Yeah, so basically that's...
Like the time that you wrote the book, was it after you had figured it out to say, okay, if I need to heal from any situation, this is what I need to do? Or you wrote it while you were going through that situation? Well, all those situations that you went through?
I think I wrote it when I started feeling better. When it worked. When it started working for me. And then I started telling people, hey, this is how you heal. And so far, like, it's one of people's favorite books so far. So it's one of those books that someone like years down the line would call you and say, hey, I found your book and I read it, and this is just so powerful and everything like that. So
Is it the book where you wrote on your Facebook where... like, people loved it so much, and then somebody told you, do you have to sell this?
Yeah.
It's the same one.
Yeah, exactly. I actually had to put it up for free in a soft copy format. So I was like, hey, have it. Yeah. And I think it's what we struggle with as creatives. I feel like I'll jump into entrepreneurship.
No, go ahead.
Like, as a creative person, you have to know where your limits are. Because... I think one thing I would say that it was so easy for me to give up that book for free, honestly.
It was,
easy. Yeah, but people would be like, hey, there's a financial aspect to book writing, you need to, but someone just said it and I was quick to give it because I felt it in my heart that this has to reach so many people. Yeah, so basically,
Have you ever suffered with imposter syndrome? Because like, it's really hard to share what you're going through or be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Or like when putting out those books, didn't you reach a point, or didn't you have moments where you were like, people are really going to like my ideas, or are they really going to care what I put out there? How was that like for you?
I don't know how, God just works these things out. I remember I was listening to a podcast where Jonathan McReynolds was, sharing about how he was never someone who you would think would do music, but somehow God just places you in a place where you don't even know how you got there. I never wanted to, be known. I just wanted to be but when I tell people this, they don't believe it. But my life was, I just wanted, what I figured in my mind was I'll just be a doctor, get married, have 2 kids, drive a Hilux and have a mansion, take care of my mom. That's all. That was my dream for the longest time. But then I started, getting into these spaces. And I was like, isn't there someone else who's like good at Sunday school or something? I never went to Sunday school. I never recited poems. I was always that kid who was that smart, and I never used to be in those spaces. And so when I just started, there were times I'd put out an article and delete it.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, what do people think about this article? Are they really gonna like it? Oh no, I think I'm sharing too much. Am I not appearing like I know things? So I would have all these voices in my head, write something, delete it. And yeah, that used to happen a lot to me. And there are also events, like there are places where you get invited when I just started, where you feel like, because my first true gig was in Kalulushi, and there were people like Dumisani, there were people like Christopher Kangombe and all these MPs and everything. And there I was, 20 years old. I was just, when I reached there,
supposed to be here?
I was actually broke. So this comedian comes and starts asking me for money. And I thought about that for like 3 months. I didn't sleep.
What happened?
Like this comedian comes to me and then starts asking for money because somehow he thought I was related to one of the diplomats. He didn't know I was speaking. So when he came, he started asking me for money. I didn't have. So he thought, this kid should be, And then I thought about, I was like, should I have given him the money I had? But I was like, I don't.
So it's all the money I got.
Yeah. So I was there, and I remember when I actually thought about this like 3 days ago. I just reached, and then because the mayor is the one that invited me, so there was this car. Then I enter. I'm like, okay, this is the life I want, but isn't it too early?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that happened, and I've been finding myself in those places, and it's very hard not to feel like you belong. And I still struggle with that sometimes. I'm like, hey, where I'm going? Am I even, But I think what I've come to know is that when people invite you, they've seen value. They've seen substance, and there are times where, especially back in the day, I'll be like, I don't even have money. Why are people inviting me like this?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's about the value that you put out. There are people, I know people that have money, but they're not famous. They're not popular. They're not invited for anything. They are always, struggling. So it's like, if it's in you, it's in you. There's nothing you can do about it. You just have to harness it and be unapologetic. Because the earlier you realize, the better. Because if you realize you have to start doing it, then that's better.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's really hard, especially when you're being ushered into these places. But you just have to fight it because people invite you, and what you're doing is genuine. As long as you faithfully do what you're doing, then go for it.
Yeah. I struggled also a lot.
Yeah.
With especially imposter syndrome, thinking that you're not good enough. And I think we were talking before we started recording of how I wanted other people to be in front of the camera and not me. And so I'll be looking for people who are doing something or who I saw had potential to do videos, and I was just like, oh, can you come be in front of the camera? I'll record you and I'll edit and I'll do everything.
Yeah.
And so I think this is maybe like 2 years ago. That's when I realized to say I can also actually do this.
Yeah.
It may not be perfect. I may not be the best speaker, but I know that I can edit videos. I can make them look nice, and I cannot bother any other people. Yeah. So that also came from fear, and that also relates to the point of deleting stuff as well. Like, I still have that fear today of putting something out. And then just says, should I put this out? Nah, forget it. But I think the important thing is whatever you think is of value and it will be helpful to other people, put it out there. And accept the outcome, whatever, however people are going to look at it. Because, it doesn't take much to change someone's life. It just takes a moment. That's one thing I've come to understand. There was a friend of mine who told me in religious spaces to say, our job is to preach. The Holy Spirit convicts. That's like now in a religious set. Like if you put it religiously, you discover that the role that you have as a person is limited. All you have to do is do what you feel is right, put it out there. You never know who watches that. There's a program I liked watching when I was young called Turning Point. I don't know if you watched that. I remember that one,
Like, it made me realize that there are just moments where something dawns on you. You don't even realize, it just dawns on you. It could be a YouTube video with 3 views that just comes, organically to you, and you watch it and you're like, oh, I really need to forgive this one. So it's like when you're doing something, you don't really realize the impact it has. I'll give you an example. I was in Moflera, my hometown, and then I met this guy, and he told me I was the reason he became a nurse and became something in life. I don't remember the time I encouraged him, but he told me the exact words I told him, and he was, out there. And there are certain times where you put out a video, you think it's not even doing fine, I can delete, but someone just comes with a testimony to say, hey, when I heard this, it changed my life. So I feel like if you are putting content out there for views and numbers, it becomes frustrating when you have one view. But if you're putting it out there so that someone learns something, then even if it's 2 views, that's enough. It's like we are living in a generation of numbers. So it's like it's hard to feel valuable when you only have 3 likes. But those 3 are real people. It's like you're sitting in an audience of 10 people. That's a big audience. You can speak. But when you see it on Facebook, you're like, But those are actually real people out there. And this is what even people who do cyberbullying don't really understand. They don't understand that behind this is a real person.
Oh, yeah.
So those 3 likes are people who have the potential to be transformed. So 5 likes, 3 likes, for me, it doesn't really matter. There are moments where I would pray my books become bestsellers. Oh, let my book. But at the end of the day, I realized that if my book can prevent even one person from committing suicide, that's okay. And I've gotten those testimonies. And when you look at one person, they have the capacity to change millions of other people. There's Cristiano Ronaldo was talking about this guy used to help him when he was young. Perhaps he could have given up if this guy did not show up, but he kept on showing up, and we had no Cristiano Ronaldo today. So those people that were able to help him become who he is today, they could have thought they were maybe doing little, but in the little they've created a superstar. So you just have to put it out there and have the right intentions. I think it helps. When
it comes to publishing a book, what challenges did you face, and what's your advice to upcoming authors?
Wow. There are a lot of challenges in the publishing space, majorly because in Zambia, we don't have a full publisher. I don't know, maybe now. But according to the research I have, we only have people that would print, edit, typeset, and then they give you the book to sell yourself. That's not a publisher, because a publisher really incubates your book. They read your book. That's why in the United States, you find that someone says, hey, the publishers refuse to publish my book. I'm sure you've heard
I've heard of that.
Yeah, because there are popular publishers that will take in books. These are people that probably publish for Oprah, Michelle Obama. So if they put a book out there, people trust it. So it's like having that publisher paying them to sell on your behalf, to do everything on your behalf, then you just collect money. But we don't have such a system in Zambia. So here you sell for yourself. It's hard when you're just young and starting, and that's why we do a lot of online. We used to do a lot of online stuff. You publish a book, you just put it online, people buy like that, then you get by. But the danger of that is that we have a lot of unpublished authors. Because for you to be published, you need an ISBN, you need all these things. So we have people that write books but are not really published, So there's a lot to fix in the publishing industry. But I'm happy that, some people are coming in, and it's helpful. But otherwise it's not easy, because you have to actually sell the book. So that becomes a business by itself. And as I was starting, I was not business savvy. I was just this kid who had interest in writing. That's why even when the book was all over the place, I didn't make much from it, because I was not a business person. And I didn't even understand what was happening. So I found that it was the most popular book, but I made more from other books than that one, because I was not ready as a business person. So
you learned it the hard way.
Fortunately.
Chimba. So this is called Do It. Here we don't just talk. We go practical. And so for the project breakdown, we're going to just maybe get some lessons from your book, Intentional Healing. So we just go through the purpose of what the process of what can somebody do in order for them to be intentional about their healing, or how can they identify that they need to heal. That's what we're gonna do. Are we good?
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
All right, let's do it.
Okay.
For the project breakdown, like I said, we just focus on some practical steps for personal healing and growth, inspired by your book, Intentional Healing. And so here's what we're going to do. So for step 1, we're going to identify the pain. And then step 2, the power of the mindset. Step 4, staying consistent.
Yeah.
Step 5, which will be the last one, impact on others. So we're going to start with step 1. So as someone who wrote this book and you've gone through experiences and learned what it takes to start the healing process, how can someone recognize that when they need to start healing?
So for me, the first step in recognizing that you need healing is to look at the absence of peace. I've come to appreciate the value of peace. And it's just unfortunate that we're in a generation which is ready to replace peace with wealth. You know, people say, I can do anything for money. I'm sure you've heard that before.
Yeah.
But peace of mind is one of the most important things. So once you lose that peace, you tend to realize that there's something that is definitely wrong in my life or certain things that I've done. So it's a broad question, but the answer is simply the absence of peace is a need for healing.
Yeah. So when you recognize that you don't find peace in certain things, that's the time you need to start saying, oh, okay, this is the time I need healing. There's something wrong that is going on, right?
Like you can't find the peace in your life, the peace in doing certain things. And also this, touches on to what a lot of people describe as depression, the loss of interest in certain things that you are doing. So for me, when I'm giving it as a universalized answer, it's basically the absence of peace. You have no peace in doing things, no peace in life and in the basic things that you do on a daily basis. That for me is a need for you to look into your life and say, what's wrong?
Now we're going to move on to step 2, the power of mindset. How does mindset play a role in personal recovery?
There's a certain mindset I developed personally. That is to believe that everything happens for good. There's a scripture in the Bible in Romans 8 verse 28. It says, everything happens for good. And that has been something that has been an anchor scripture, an anchor for my life. Because imagine you feel everything that happens for you happens for good. That already gives you the mindset to say, what is the good in this? Because sometimes things happen, like you lose a parent, and obviously in the moment you can't see the good in that, but down the line you realize that it built a certain character in you. You are raised by step parents and they mistreat you. In the moment you don't think it's worth anything, but down the line you realize that it built stamina in you. And so I've come to understand that everything that is happening in every season, regardless, you may not understand it now, but you understand it later to say it's something that built you into who you are. There are people that lose money. If you lose 5,000 today, and I tell you, take heart. Of course, it wouldn't mean much, but the truth is that in the long run, you realize that it did change something in you. So the mindset, for healing is basically you understanding that life is hard. I think we all know that. And it took time for me to really get to a place where I understand that life is hard. There's nothing you can do about it. All you can do is realize that there are certain protocols and things and that life is built on. That's why we have so many books, sermons, people trying to describe what life is. It itself is to say that it's not easy, being a human being. But, that does not necessarily mean that you have to give up whenever something happens, you throw in the towel. You need to have a mindset to say what good can come from this. I was at a speaking engagement today, and someone said, Chanda Brown to be specific, he said, load shedding is an opportunity. And from a business perspective, you realize that there people will be needing certain products in this load shedding, and you look at it as a stop sign, but actually it could be something that leads you to something greater. I made the most money during COVID, and it was something that was crumbling a lot of businesses, but I just found the ability to adapt in that situation. So the mindset of healing is an approach to life in a way that helps you realize that whatever happens to you, it can be transformed into something good if only you have the ability to look at it from a positive perspective. They say life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react. So it's all about reaction, what happens. And in the book, I also talk about reaction time. Like I say that it's not that situations stop affecting us, it's that we grow. You know, if something happens to you that happened to you before, the way you react will be different because you have grown from it. And so every challenge is an opportunity, basically. So having that mindset to say something bad happened, yes, but what good can come out of this, I think is a good mindset for healing.
Yeah, that's really important. Understanding and acknowledging that, and accepting that life is hard.
Yeah.
And what can I do about it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Step 3, what are some actionable steps people can take to navigate difficult times?
Talk to someone. I think one thing that keeps people bound is shame. Because we are afraid of being looked at in a certain way. Like I was telling you, I was someone who people looked up to. But the truth is I'm also a human being. So there are moments where I also break down. And I may need to hear the exact same thing someone, heard from me. But if they say it, it will carry a different weight. And so a lot of people are suffering with addictions, with so many things. And they know that there's a possibility of healing, but they won't seek it because they're afraid of being ashamed. They're afraid of someone looking at them in a certain way. But I think what happens in life is that we go through certain things that help us not judge. A lot of people don't judge nowadays, because they've been through certain situations that have let them know that sometimes doing something bad or wrong is just a decision away, and some people are just in the wrong places at the wrong time. So that gives you the mindset of, I won't judge this person. So just find certain people that can help you. And that work, I think for me, talk to someone, it helps. Sometimes just hearing a problem out loud makes you realize that it's ridiculous. Because sometimes, especially as females, you're ranting, hey, this guy did this. Then when you say it out loud, you realize that, I don't know. That's why most of the girl problems just end on chocolates. Like, you just... because sometimes it's just, the way that you're approaching a matter. So it always helps when you actually get to talk to someone. So for me, the key here is talk to someone and be willing to be helped, because there are people who come to lecture you, but they want you to help them. There's someone who's like, oh, I did this, I was right. I was like,
validation.
You're not ready. Yeah, they're seeking validation. Yeah, exactly. So you realize that the people who really are at the point where they need help, they'll want you to help them, and they'll come as they are, and then you are able to help them, of course. So it's just a matter of being vulnerable, finding people you can be vulnerable to, and just letting it out. Because most people have this kopala mentality. Say, I can do it. Know? But at the end of the day, you also need recharge, and you also need to talk to people. Yeah. So talk to someone. I think that's the basic advice.
Oh, so being vulnerable.
It's very important. Find people that you can be vulnerable. Cry. There are people who say, I never cry. But if you're going through something that requires you to cry, find people who you can be vulnerable to, who will not judge you. People that you can just cry out to. And that helps a lot. Because you're not Superman. You're just a human being as the next person.
Step 4, staying consistent, which is like difficult. It's easy to overcome once. But that's not the last time you're going to face something or go through a difficult time. So how can people stay committed to their healing process?
Change is a daily decision. It's a day. If you say, I've stopped smoking today, you can always smoke tomorrow. So you have to keep saying no every single day. So that's why if you're not motivated enough, if you don't have a better drive to drive you to quitting certain things or changing or healing, it's never going to work out. So you have to have the right motives. I want to get healed because I want my life back. I want to live this life. I want to be ambitious again, those reasons. And then at the end of the day, you find the healing that you need if you only stay consistent. Because consistency obviously is important in everything. You have to show up every single day. I always talk about this when I'm speaking to entrepreneurs, to say in almost every success story I've heard, there's always one big break. Like there's this guy who's a CEO, he kept showing up, he had a content, but then one big client came and he changed his life. So you find that when you keep showing up, there's going to be an opportunity. That's why someone said, hard work, places where good luck can find you. So even luck now is expensive because we are in a very competitive generation. So you realize that at the end of the day, you have to keep showing up. So even the same thing with healing. So that's why good motives are important, because it fuels you at the end of the day.
Now, step 5, the last part.
Yeah.
Impact on others. How can someone use their personal healing journey to help others? You have done that.
Yeah. And sometimes it's dangerous because there are people that have not fully healed, and then they'll still speak to others. And you'll find that sometimes they project their own hatred. Like sometimes people heal wrongly. And then you heal in the sense that someone tells you to have, maybe you develop a level of hate for females, and then your message will always project towards that. So I always encourage people to say, before you teach, make sure that you are in the right state of mind. Because there are people spreading really crazy messages out there because their healing process was never complete. So you need to make sure that before you begin to grow and help and nurture people, you yourself have healed. You yourself are in a proper state of mind. So it's a good thing, and I always encourage it. When you just find yourself on the proper journey of healing, you have to start helping others. It helps you as well. It helps you also stay accountable, because there are people that are depending and looking up to you. It's good, but you just have to make sure that you've actually healed in the right way before you start, projecting certain things that you've learned. Because sometimes I look at my books, and of course there's no wrong. Like I made sure I healed before I taught. But one thing I know is, when you look at what you read, I think it's Pompey who wrote on his page to say he doesn't listen to his songs too much because he might feel the urge to edit. So it's like when you're reading through a book, you're like, oh, this was an interesting thought that I had. But I've never seen a projection of pain from my books. Like, I'm trying to tell people to say, now do that, So I am confident that I healed, and yeah, of course, there's stuff I could change because now I've, even matured the more. But that's true for everything, for music, for artists. Even you, when you watch your old videos, you're like, I could do better. Yeah, so
because I had to also, like, going back when I edit the podcast, I'm done.
Yeah,
I never go back to watch it.
Yeah, perfect.
Because I might have changed that or said this in a certain way. Yeah.
So even with books, when you give an editor, you're done. Because the moment that, things start coming up. So for me, I came up with a system. If I write a book and I develop an idea, that book is already gone and published. So what I do is I speak about them in my speaking engagements. Yeah. I don't go adding it to the book and saying, yeah, so it's very important to heal before you help.
Thanks, Chishimba. So that was the project breakdown.
Okay.
And now back to our conversation to wrap it up.
Okay.
Chishimba, it's now time for the rapid fire questions. So short answers only.
Yeah, you have to emphasize that with me.
Yeah. I'll make sure I catch you when you go over it. What's one book that changed your life?
The Alchemist.
I know you want to explain.
No.
I don't want to ask further questions. Okay, but we'll move on.
Yeah.
If you could have dinner with any author or speaker, who would it be?
Currently, a preacher. A preacher is basically a speaker, right?
Yeah,
I would have dinner with Stephanie Ike Okafor, Pastor Stephanie Ike Okafor.
Nice.
Yeah, she's one person that's inspiring me at the moment. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
What's your favorite self-care activity?
Reminding myself that I'm only human. Yeah. Because I think sometimes I forget. So I just remind myself, hey, you're human. Yeah. Take it slow.
Take it slow. If you weren't in tech, writing, and of course writing books, what would you be doing?
If I didn't pursue that?
Yeah.
I'd be a doctor, probably. I'd be a doctor. Yeah.
What's one word to describe your personal journey?
Serendipitous.
Serendipitous.
Yeah.
Can you explain that? Just a tiny bit.
So serendipity is actually something happening to you that you felt was bad, but at the end of the day, it was a good thing. Yeah. Okay.
New word added to the vocabulary. Thanks. All right. That was the rapid fire questions.
Oh, yeah.
That was fast. You stayed true to your word. Do you have anything that you're working on that you would like to share, or it's not something that you would share now?
That's always hard. But I'm working on something in IT, and hopefully it winds up right. Yeah, I don't want my what's this village people to hear.
to hear about it.
But yeah.
Okay, now we're waiting to hear when it goes public. We'll be waiting to hear from that.
Yeah.
Okay, and then where can people find you? Of course, not your physical address, but online.
Yeah, I would be brave if I shared my physical address.
Yeah.
So online, Chishimba Malisawa. My most active is Facebook, and I have some WhatsApp channels where I talk about things like mental health, healing, and religious stuff.
Okay.
So
nice.
Yeah, I do have a very strong Facebook presence.
Okay.
So it's Chishimba Malisawa. I have a page and an account.
Showing right here.
Yeah.
All right. Chimba, that was a really inspiring conversation. Looking back the time we first met. We're all just trying to trying out different things. And I'm really inspired to know that you're also going through the same thing I was going through.
Yeah.
But I didn't know because I thought you had everything figured out.
Yeah.
And after a few years, we're able to sit and talk about our lives and how we ended up here.
Yeah.
So I was really glad to have you here, and I enjoyed this conversation. Hope to have you again.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just amazed at how similar our stories are.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. I'm also glad what you're doing. You are settled in, and you seem like you have everything going.
No, I'm gonna be vulnerable. I'm still figuring it out. But thank you for that. Yeah. No, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, and very, very happy to be here.
Yeah. All right, let's do it.
Should I say that too?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. All right. Okay. All right. Yeah, that's a wrap.
Did I say it wrong?
Let's do it. No, I said it right actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.